What do you know about the Holy Grail?
Indiana Jones. That's about it. Like, it's a cup that Jesus drank out of at the Last Supper, and it's not fancy, according to Indiana Jones. It's a humble cup. That's all I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it real?
Yeah, so it's in the Bible. There was a cup Jesus drank out of at the Last Supper.
Hold on,
so
I got
it's
more.
real in that regard.
I didn't realize I do have more.
What else you got?
What is your quest? To find the Holy Grail. So Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail. Got that.
There you go. Sorry, I'm looking a thing up here. What do you know? I got a Bible here, which is kind of a thing that happens from time to time with me. And the Holy Grail is in the Bible, but they don't call it the Holy Grail in any way. It's the cup that he drank out of at the Last Supper. So it must have existed because, what else are you going to drink out of, right?
Yeah.
Does it have magic powers or anything like that? Wow, somebody like me would say no. But it made for the interesting stuff of legend in the Middle Ages. So, okay, Matthew, what do we got here? 26. The cup, the Holy Grail, if you will, is kind of both a metaphor and a physical thing as Jesus and his disciples are gathered at the Last Supper. Can you picture this scene?
Yes.
Visually, where does your head go when you picture the Last Supper?
The painting from Leonardo da Vinci. For some odd reason, everyone's sitting on the same side of the table, which I always thought to be a wildly inefficient use of space.
Okay.
Yeah, so that scene painted by Leonardo da Vinci, unfortunately, that's where my mind goes. I think it looked nothing like that, but yeah, that's where my mind goes.
Well, why is that unfortunate?
Well, it's like when you read a book and then you watch the movie, and then you can't go back and imagine it the way the book was the first time you read it. Because you have a character and a face associated with it now, whereas you didn't before. It's like that.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I don't know that I feel like it's unfortunate. I don't know. It's trying to capture the spirit of a moment. That painting is in Milan. Did you make it up to Milan when you were in Italy? Did you see the Last Supper?
No, I did not. I didn't know it was there. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty beat up. I think they've tried to do some restoration on it, but there's been a bunch of copies and stuff. So you can get a pretty good sense of what the painting is like. But what does the painting evoke for you? What is the scene?
Oh, it's in the upper room. You've got the 12 disciples, and you got Jesus in the middle. And visually, the painting by Da Vinci is set up so that Jesus is the focus of attention. But you have several things happening on the outsides. Some people are leaning into Jesus. Some people are having little sidebar conversations. I don't know, but it feels like an upper room. It feels like a cozy place. I've never thought about the tableware. Is there a cup on the table?
There's a lot of stuff on the table. There's a bunch of little hidden things. It looks like maybe there's a bag of money next to Judas. And does Judas maybe have a knife like tableware sitting right by him too, maybe? He looks all sneaky and dark. It seems like one of them has maybe some salt by them. The point is, there's a ton of layers of symbolism in that painting as the artist is trying to communicate all the social dynamics and everything that was going on at the Last Supper. Do you remember what the Last Supper is about in the Bible, where it fits in the story and everything?
Yeah, it's right before he gets captured in the garden and he's about to be crucified. He's basically talking to his disciples right before everything goes down. It's a big deal. They're asking him questions and they don't really understand, but he's trying to be very clear with them about things that are about to happen, and they still don't understand, which I think makes sense.
So the cup in that scene has got a ton of layers of metaphor to it. They're all sitting there. Judas is in the room, who ultimately is going to sell out his friend Jesus and betray him to his death. Peter is in the room, who represents the other end of the spectrum of responding to Jesus. Jesus has been telling him, I'm going to get arrested, I'm going to die. And Peter's like, I'll kill anybody who tries to do that. He's likes to fight guy. Who, you go to a bar with likes to fight guy. He's just ready to punch anybody on your behalf for an imagined slight. That's Peter. So Peter's all amped up. He's made these big ovations about I'm going to fight people. Judas is slinking around. Jesus calls out Judas during that meal and is like, you're the one who's going to betray me. And then Judas skulks out into the night all hunched over. And at the end of all of that, Jesus initiates Probably the most repeated Christian ritual in all of history. I've never added this up before. But I would say communion, the Lord's Supper, the Eucharist, those are all different names for the same Christian practice. That happens more than baptisms, right? Because you take communion a lot in your life, but you only get baptized once.
Right. Yeah. I was talking to my son about this last night, and we were talking about how Christians do things differently, but it all comes back to the doctrine of the gospel and like what actually matters. I was telling him about different times that I had what I would say, taken the Lord's Supper is the way I say it. I remember we took the Lord's Supper. That's a way that we say it. I can remember being in Salisbury Cathedral in England.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and so I went up and I was like, man, it's Sunday. I'm going to go to church at Salisbury Cathedral. I'm here. I'm going. I walked in. There were maybe 20 people, and it blew my mind.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
It was like an early service or something. I don't know what it was, but I walked in.
How early? It's Salisbury Cathedral.
I don't know. All I know is I went in and all the people kind of were like, hey, we're going to do the Lord's Supper or whatever they called it in the Anglican church. And went up there and the priest had a cup, like a chalice, like a gold looking cup.
There you go.
And you went up and you were around, I don't know what you call it, like the place where you kneel. Some people call it an altar. It's not an altar. You don't kill animals on it. But he held a cup up to your lips, and he had a napkin, like a cloth napkin. He held the cup up to your lips, and he gave you a drink, and then he would wipe the cup. Only on the outside, I noted. And he wiped the cup. And I remember when the cup touched my lips, I remember thinking, oh, I had very destined thoughts. I was like, this is spun metal. The edge of the cup is very sharp. It's cold because it's more conductive than glass. And I just thought all the things, and then I was like, oh, and also, that's real wine, which was odd for me because at that time in my life, I had had wine once or twice, but I didn't know much about it. And so it was just a very, very different thing. And the bread was different as well.
Did he put the bread on your tongue? You hold your tongue out and then he puts it on there?
I don't remember that part. Maybe I don't remember that part.
Or did you cup both hands and hold them up like a beggar?
I think that's what happened.
It's usually one of the two in that kind of a setting.
I think it was the beggar one. I think so. I can't really remember. If you were the priest looking out at the church, I was on the far right. And he started on his left. And so I got to watch how everybody else did it first. And then I was like, oh, I guess this is how they do it at this church. So I will just do what they do.
Do you remember what he said when he gave it to you?
No. I remember it was similar to what I had heard in a Methodist church, the body of Christ broken for you.
The blood of Christ shed for you. Yeah, both of those.
Yeah, I've heard that at the Methodist church, but I don't know if I remember him saying that at Salisbury Cathedral.
It's interesting that they said that at a Methodist church. There are kind of two views of communion among Christians. One is that there is an actual physical, metaphysical transformation of the elements that happen. The churches that tend to have fancier buildings and more of a church hierarchy tend to be the ones that would say there is a unique prayer by a uniquely appointed priest with the unique authority of the church, and it causes this transformation.
Yeah, I remember you made a video about this. It starts with a T,
Transubstantiation.
Transubstantiation, yeah. Your video on that was really interesting because the mechanics of that fascinated me. Like, if this actually is the body, then what do you do with it when you don't eat it all?
What do you do with it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other view is that it's symbolic and there is no miraculous transformation in the moment, but the miracle happened with the life and death and resurrection of Jesus, and by what has been transformed in the heart of the Christian believer, and then you take communion to remember that. So in those high church, fancier church settings where they believe in the transformation thing, they will tend to say, this is my body. A lot of their altars will say, this is my body, like as a way to say, that bread has been transformed. This literally is the body of Christ. Christ is present. And as weird as it sounds, you are ingesting that. Churches like the one you go to, the altar will tend to say something different. Do you remember what it says?
Do this in remembrance of me.
There you go.
Yeah,
and this isn't a hard rule, but they will tend to emphasize what Jesus said at the Last Supper when he had the Holy Grail right there in his hand, where he's making the point that this is in remembrance. It's a memorial to this thing that occurred.
Yeah.
And so then therefore the napkin, the cloth or whatever that was on that chalice that you were served communion from at Salisbury Cathedral, which must have been amazing, that served two purposes. One was just sanitary, to clean up the mess. I mean, I don't know, people are drinking out of it. It could be a little sloppy or whatever. The other is to make sure that none of that transformed wine, which metaphysically has become the blood of Christ, gets lost or squandered or spilled on the floor. You wouldn't want that. So those kind of churches show great care to make sure that it's all taken care of. So, historically there are different views on that, but pretty much all Christians would look at the Bible. Matthew 26 is one of the places where it's recorded. And they would look at this scene that the Last Supper is a depiction of and be like, all right, there was this thing and Jesus initiated it and it's very powerful and it's something that Christians are to do moving forward. And the scene goes like this. Is it all right if can I just read it?
Yeah.
Okay. When evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me. So it's a weird meal. There's quite the dynamic. They were very sad and began to say to him one after another, surely not I, Lord. And I imagine some of that was maybe in front of others. I imagine some other people kind of sneaked around as the meal was unfolding and were like, hey, it's not me, right? I mean, wouldn't you want to know? So Jesus replied, the one who's dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man, that was a term that Jesus used for himself, will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born. Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, surely not I, Rabbi. And Jesus answered, yeah, it's you. And I just think that's so, yes, it is you. Oh, dang. Also, he had already made the deal at this time. He'd already gone and met with the people who wanted to kill Jesus and made a swap and worked everything out. So he knew dang well it was him. At any rate, while they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, take and eat. This is my body. And that part that I'm reading right there, for people who haven't, in the third chair, who've never been around church, it's just going to feel like old Bible-y sounding language. To people who have been around church, that's probably the first part that I read where your autopilot kicked on and you were like, oh, I've heard that one a lot.
Yep.
So the first thing in communion is that you take the bread, and then the second thing is that you take the wine or the cup. So it goes on, it says, then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I won't drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives, and then that's where Jesus ends up getting betrayed and arrested and off to the cross. And that's how the whole story plays out. Theologically, this is all really important in terms of Christians don't just believe that forgiveness is a nice thing. I think everybody believes forgiveness is nice. Christians believe the forgiveness of God actually does something, actually works. It actually makes it as though you didn't screw it up in the first place in the eyes of God. And what Jesus is alluding to here is kind of the centerpiece idea of Christianity, that there is forgiveness for what you screw up and what's wrong with you, that there is redemption. But it wasn't just a hand wave. It wasn't like, oh, God just decided to blow it all off. There was an actual punishment that was paid. Christians just believe that that was paid by Jesus because it's too great a burden for Christians or for anybody to bear. And so then this part is really important when you understand that to the whole history of everything about being a Christian and Christianity, because this is kind of where it all started to come into focus with what Jesus was doing, going to the cross, and the idea being that forgiveness would come through what Jesus would do. So in light of that, it makes sense that people would be really interested in that relic, that cup.
So when you think of the Holy Grail, like what does it look like? Could you draw it?
Yeah, I'm going to draw it for you right now on this sheet of paper right here. Just a
Okay.
second. This is only going to take a minute. If we were doing Pictionary and we were at a party and I drew this right here, right
This is
here,
risky.
just like this. How is this risky? Do you think I'm going to do something?
Yes.
You think I'm going to do something offensive and this is going to be subversive? Well, you're wrong. If I drew that and we were playing Pictionary,
Yeah. It looks like a goblet with
would you guess Holy Grail?
jewels on it with like some glowy ness behind it.
Glowy ah lines? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you might guess Holy Grail. Like if I was trying to get you to guess Holy Grail, I would draw that, and then I would draw a fedora and a whip.
I don't know what that means.
And then you would piece it together, right?
No.
A fedora?
No. Oh,
That's the Indiana
Indiana
Jones
Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would.
So when
work.
I think of the
Maybe
Holy
it would
Grail,
work.
I think of something that looks like a goblet like that, but it's made of clay, and it's
Right.
not even glazed. Like it's just like rough clay, which is interesting because you brought up the Da Vinci painting, right? And you said that it was in there, but don't look it up. Do you know what it looks like in the painting? Because I pulled up the
I
painting.
think it looks more like what you picture.
Yeah.
I don't remember it looking fancy.
Yeah, we're both wrong.
I remember it looking. What does it look like?
It's nothing like what you or I just described on the painting.
Is it just like a cup? Just a boring little cup?
What do you think it's made of?
I think it'd be made of clay,
No, it's not.
like pottery,
No, it's not.
earthenware.
No.
What is it?
That's what I thought too. But what is the thing where you think a thing is a certain way, but it's actually another one?
Wrong. It's called wrongness.
Look at the picture. What is that?
It's glass.
It's glass. It's a glass drinking cup on Da Vinci's.
Like you'd get at Target.
Yeah. It's nothing
Huh?
like what I thought.
Oh, you just did the thing to me like, oh, there is a name for this. What is it? It's when everybody thinks a thing is a certain way,
Yeah.
but you're all wrong. Like the
Fruit of the Loom.
idea that the comedian Sinbad made a movie called Shazam, where he was a wizard that a kid discovered in the back room
It's not
of like
Bader
the janitor's
Meinhof,
closet
right?
at his school. No, that's like where you buy a Dodge Caravan that's white and you've never seen one in your whole life, and then now you see them everywhere. Bader Meinhof is when you become aware of a thing and immediately you see it everywhere and notice it all the time. Dunning-Kruger, that's
No, that's when
the one where you think you know everything, but you don't.
I don't know. Yeah, the thing I'm talking about is where people imagine that there's a cornucopia in the Fruit of the Loom logo, but there's not.
There is.
There's a term for this. Oh, the
There
Mandela
is.
effect. That's it.
Are we saying Mandela wasn't a person? I'm almost sure he was.
The Mandela effect, specific false memories can sometimes be shared by a large group of people. This was dubbed the Mandela effect by researcher Fiona Broom, who reported having a vivid and detailed memories of news coverage of South African anti-apartheid leader Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s, despite Mandela actually
didn't
dying in
at all.
2013. Huh. Interesting. No, I thought there was a clay-looking cup in the painting of The Last Supper, but I was wrong. So it's a glass.
Boy, was I too. I never would have guessed that.
Okay.
So, why do you think people would care? How did this go from being a piece of dinnerware at a table to the most legendary piece of dinnerware that became a metaphor for the most cherished thing, that unreachable, ungraspable thing in any given field? How did it evolve to that, do you think?
Is it because of Indiana Jones?
Nope, predates that.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I guess it has to because of Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail. No, okay, so this is a thing. Was it during the Crusades?
I think it predates that too.
What?
Okay, so don't worry about the timeline. Just speculate. Why would people care so much? Why would it matter to anybody? Nobody cares about the holy fork or the bread plate of holy God
Sacrament,
from that
yeah.
meal. They only care about the cup.
This is my covenant. No. Well, what does he say again? Read it again in the Bible.
Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant. In 1 Corinthians 11, it's really funny. Here, check out my Bible. This is my pastor front of the stage Bible. You'll notice I have one marker,
Yeah.
one tab in the whole Bible. It's 1 Corinthians 11 because we were not a liturgical church. That is, I didn't read things over the course of the year in sequence. There was only really one passage that we would go to all the time, and that was for communion, which we took all the time. And this is Paul quoting Jesus. He said, "For I received from the Lord what I also passed on to you. The Lord Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, quote, 'This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me.' In the same way, after supper, he took the cup, saying, 'This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me.'" So the language you just used, I think you were recalling that bit right there from 1 Corinthians 11.
Right. So this cup, I think Jesus there is talking symbolically, this ritual that we're doing. So I imagine there were people all around the table when they were doing the Last Supper, and they all had cups. I don't think it was like my experience in Salisbury Cathedral where there was literally a cup, this cup. I mean, that's the way I've always read it.
Oh, interesting. So you don't imagine Jesus going around with that exact cup and having everybody take a drink or passing it around the table and everybody drinking from that same cup? You imagine it being more like a, sounds bad, it sounds sacrilegious, but like a toast?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, that's how I kind of imagined it. But I mean, if it's this cup,
I mean, it says he offered the cup to them, though. So
yeah, you're right.
My brain would go to the same thing. I would picture kind of a toast, like everyone
Like
drink
Vikings.
from your wine
With a flagon.
cup. Yeah,
Yeah.
skull. I mean, it definitely says he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, he might have served each one of them.
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of visualize it because you just don't do it that often.
yeah.
Huh.
So why the cup? I mean, because it was this moment. Like, it was like, hey, we're about to do this. This is, I mean, the covenant was about to happen in a very real way. And that was the decision point. That was the Rubicon, kind of. Maybe? I don't know. You asked me a question I don't know the answer
Yeah.
to. I'm just spitballing here.
Well, remember a few years ago, we did an episode on the World's Fair
Yeah.
in Chicago,
Yeah.
Columbian Exposition. And it was underwhelming, but you will recall I really wanted to go there with you. I wanted to show it to you after you read the book and learned about it. I wanted to go there and look at what was left from 120, 130 years earlier. And then, kind of matching that energy, you gave me a gift. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah. I gave you a badge from one of the police officers there at the World's Fair.
And a pressed penny from the World's Fair that somebody who's now long deceased took a penny, which was worth a lot more back then, out of their pocket. I imagine as I hold that penny, them putting it in there, maybe letting the kiddo who was with them do the actual cranking. But I have that. Those are relics. Those are thin spots between a moment in history and the moment in which I live. They're a point of tangible connection that matters to me. I have an Alexander the Great coin. It's a plop of silver, designed by Aristotle, and he made that coin with his face on it to pay the guys who went and defeated Persia with him. I lost it the other day. I can't find it. I don't know what happened.
Oh, man.
I tossed it to my buddy. He forgot, put it in his pocket, handed it back to me later, and I don't know what I did with it.
Whoa.
And so I keep jokingly telling Camilla or anybody who's around the house, like, hey, if you see an Alexander the Great coin from like 340 BC, I'm looking for that. You'll know what it is because it has Alexander the Great on it. So just if you see that, let me know. Hopefully that'll turn up at some point. But why do I like that
It's going
coin
to come
so
out in the
much? Why do I
dryer,
like my-
dude. It's going to, like with
Dude,
your
it's gonna
old
be in the
chapstick
dryer.
tube where the chapstick goes to the dryer and it melts and then it all slumps sideways in the chapstick tube. You're going to be, oh, man, what is this? Okay, got some belly button lint, got some
Crap.
chapstick tube, got this 340 BCE dollop of silver. Oh, there that is. Oh, okay.
Oh, that's nice to have that back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All ground down and ruined.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. I'll have to find another one someday, I suppose. Or it's going to be in some jean pocket for some pants that I can only wear when I'm at my most skinny in mid-August. And I haven't put on for 11 months, and it's all wrapped up in like a business card that I got from a plumber or something. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. It'll turn up. I'm confident. But Why do I like that stuff? Why do I have that Pontius Pilate coin? Why do I have coins minted by Caesar Augustus? And because I want those points of connection. Why do we keep stuff from childhood we don't need? Or stuff from dead people who we loved who've passed on? I don't need grandma's salt shakers that are shaped like owls. But I love her and I miss her, and there isn't much tangible there left anymore. So you keep it as a point of connection. It reminds you that it was real and that it really happened. And the more significant that item is in the story, the more somebody's going to value it and want to keep it around. Well, this might be the most significant item ever in a lot of people's minds. Like, what would be a better relic, a better point of connection with the thing that, I mean, the majority of the planet has believed was the incident that gives them any hope of meaning or life after death or being reunited with the people they've lost or having their sins forgiven. I mean, this is pretty big stuff we're talking about. What would be a bigger item that could still be out there that you could find? I mean, can you think of anything?
Specifically with regards to Jesus of Nazareth.
Specifically, yeah, let's just game it out. What would be a cooler thing that you could touch and hold?
I don't think cool is the word, but I would say the nails that held him to the cross.
Okay, and we have those.
What?
Yep, there are about 15,000 of them.
What do you mean?
Well, people lied. There's a lot of lying about relics.
Okay, yeah.
There was a whole relic trade in the late classical age and the Middle Ages, where there was just tremendous wealth and influence to be had with people wanting to venerate these thin spots between the physical world and the world of Jesus, the physical world and heaven. There was belief that there was power in these relics, and the closer the relic was to Jesus, something in the Bible, the more power might be in that relic for you. So there's a whole relic trade.
What do you mean by power?
It depends on who you talk to. There's a couple of very obscure passages in the Bible that are kind of hard to understand. At one point, I think it's in Acts, there's a situation where a follower of Jesus passed by somebody, and like even their shadow brought about healing in somebody's life. I don't know how to read that or what to make of it. There's another moment where touching an artifact from a holy dead person in the Old Testament had power. So the idea is kind of vaguely there in the Bible. It's kind of hard to interpret that out into something really hardcore. So for me and for you, we're going to have that impulse toward relic preservation. It's neat.
I don't.
You have it, or you wouldn't have sent me the thing from the fair.
Well, yeah.
Why'd you send me that stuff from the fair? You knew that mattered.
To you? I know it matters to you.
Yeah, but like, I don't know, if somebody sent you something that came off the Saturn V and was on the moon or something like that, you would put that in a little jar and you'd keep it.
There's a guy locally. He had some of the cards, some of the data cards from the LVDC, the Launch Vehicle Data Controller. I think that's what it's called. There's the digital controller. Basically, these are wound iron core memory sticks, and he has it. Like when they were making it, he Launch Vehicle Digital Computer. He just had some of these core sections from the computer, and he let me borrow them for a video. And I remember thinking, wow, this is very, very special. And so I remember when I took it back to him, I buckled it up in my truck. I like put it in the passenger seat and I buckled it. And I remember thinking, yeah, this is very special. But when it comes to my faith, I'm a Christian. When it comes to my faith, I don't think that God's kingdom is of this world. And so I don't face a certain direction when I pray. I don't feel like I have to be in a certain location when I pray. Like that was the whole thing that Jesus was doing. He was giving us direct access.
Yeah.
I remember being in Italy and being in the cathedral in Siena, and there was beautiful art in there, and it made me think, very, very interesting thoughts. But I remember going to the basement, and they had, I think it was in Siena, they had this cross, and inside the cross, it was really small, it's about a foot tall, there were a bunch of little windows. Like little tiny windows. They look like pillboxes. And I was like, what on earth is this? And I looked real close, And inside that little cross, it would say like 52. And you'd go down, you look at the little legend at the bottom, it says 52. This was threads from whatever. Or, down here, this is a lock of hair from Peter. Or, this was a piece of the heart of St. John the Baptist. Just whoever.
Dang.
Whatever it was all these different things. This is a piece of the cross. This is the piece of the cross that Jesus was crucified on. And I remember thinking, okay. I guess what I'm saying is I understand the thin spot.
So you didn't believe any of that?
I did not, no.
Why not? Why don't you think those things are actually what they are purported to be based on that legend in Siena?
There was a really interesting... Well, mostly because of money and influence, and I have the special thing and you don't kind of stuff. But I say that to you, and I'm surrounded by pieces of photography film of things that I've collected, because I think that's, it's more verifiable. I don't know. I'm kind of a hypocrite here, because when it comes to my faith, that stuff, I don't know. It's like, so this is a piece of the spear that killed Jesus. What do you do with that information? I don't know.
Well, it can get crazy. For starters, one thing you can do with that information, going exactly off of what you just said in that off-the-cuff example, the spear that killed Jesus, when they called it the Spear of Longinus, I think.
Wait, what's it called? It's a thing?
The Spear of Longinus, Longinus.
Oh, okay.
Maybe?
I didn't know that was a thing.
I know, it's all off the cuff. I'm probably wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure in the First Crusade, during the siege of Jerusalem, so this would be, in the 1090s, they bogged down and they were discouraged because sieges are just horrible. And somewhere in the midst of that, somebody, in a clearly transparent effort to just rally the troops, was like, hey, everybody, don't lose heart. I just was digging over here, and craziest thing, remember when Jesus got crucified? Yeah, it turns out the spear that stabbed him in the side, it was just buried over here. I found it. So that was definitely it. That's the one. It wasn't any of the other spears that ever existed back then, or a more recent spear. That was definitely the one. And then in almost this Mount Sinai golden calf kind of moment, some people propped it up and some of the Crusaders worshipped it, which I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to do Bible-wise, but they did. And then they had ordeals because some people doubted the spear. Again, I haven't read about this for 20 years, so I'm sure my facts aren't exactly right, but they had to do like ordeals, trials to figure out if the spear was real or something, and they didn't pass the trial. Like, again, Monty Python, she's a witch, kind of, if you can withstand being burned for 15 minutes, then you were telling the truth. And
right.
Wow, kind of feels like the burden of proof has already been shifted here a little bit.
Yeah.
And they didn't pass the ordeal or something like this, and so then it was determined to be a fake, or I don't know, man. I think the famous video game legendary sword called, I don't ever know how to pronounce it, Joyeuse, Joyeuse. It's a regal sword of the French nobility.
Okay.
I think the claim is that that sword is made from the melted down spear of Longinus, and it's now this like jeweled kind of rapier kind of sword that is in the French royal treasury. I could be butchering everything. I have nothing in front of me, but this feels like it's the gist of this thing. Even if I'm kind of close on this, you brought up the question, what do you get out of it? What would happen? Well, crazy things can happen. It isn't always this beautiful thin spot between now and the past, or now and heaven. When people encounter or purport to have a relic, it can go straight to Crazyville and cause some pretty fanatical expressions, but even really non-Christian expressions of worship and action among Christians. And that's just one of many examples. You're making a face.
This all makes me feel weird. Like, I remember looking at this thing, the cross with the little pillboxes in it with all the different relics, and I saw there was a wall, and there was a scientific study that a local university had done where they looked at the relic under an electron microscope, and we did verify that this is cardiac human tissue, or whatever it is they did. And I remember thinking, this is weird, man. Yeah, it probably is human heart tissue from the 1600s, probably. But also, like, what even if it was, what is it? I just don't get it. I just got done reading the book of Judges, and it reminds me of when they're like, oh yeah, and we just came close to God. Now let's melt down this silver and make a ephod, or whatever. And I just don't understand why that's a thing that humans want to do. I don't understand why.
Well, sure you do. Come on. How many times have you had a habit of mind or a habit of relationship, a way you treat people, and you realize, I should not say that. I shouldn't handle my business that way. That needs to stop. And then, as a Christian, you're like, who do I talk to when I've just done something that I regret? God, forgive me for this thing. I see that it is not honoring to you and not ideal, and forgive me for this mistake. And then you do it again. Surely that's happened to you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like this week.
Okay, yeah, same here.
But I didn't go make a golden
every
snake.
Day. Right. But the point is, people are bifurcated. Like, I don't know, I compartmentalize things in my brain, and I do and think things that make sense, and then I do things that don't make sense. The Apostle Paul in the New Testament, he has this whole rant that he goes on about, like, I don't know what my problem is. The things that I ought to do, I don't want to do, and then I don't do. And then I get it the other way, and it's hard to get my body to submit to what is right sometimes. And he's totally open about the fact that even as one of the best Christians in the history of ever, that he doesn't have mastery over this thing, and that he's inconsistent between what he says he believes and sincerely believes, and his own behavior at times is inconsistent with that. So, I don't know, dude. Like, it sounds crazy, but we live in a very modern time. If anything, we believe almost too much in the quantifiability and taxonomicability of everything. If anything, I think we're too skeptical of there being any truth beyond that which is physically testable with the tools we happen to have right now. Back then, people were much more inclined to believe that the unexplored realm of science and mystery was the miraculous realm of God. And if God could do miraculous things then, he could do miraculous things now. And these items are some sort of reminder of that. People just thought different. I don't know. And so their inconsistencies and hypocrisies are probably just going to manifest a little different than yours and mine. That's the point.
I mean, I think these things are interesting and very important from an archaeological perspective, especially when they're verifiable. Like when I gave you the badge from the World's Fair, that's a very different feeling thing. It's your coin makes a lot of sense, right? Your coin makes sense. It's like, hey,
yeah, it's real.
This is clearly minted by this specific metal. Like, it's verifiable.
Yeah, it says Alexander the Great right on it in plain English. So you know it's real.
There you go. And it says 340 BC, right?
Yes.
Right.
It's like an Encyclopedia Brown episode.
Yeah, exactly. No,
hold on a minute, Bugs Meany. You're an imposter.
Yeah. No, I think it's I think those things are interesting, but I think so you asked me about the Holy Grail. Where are you going with that?
No, you're getting right at exactly what I'm picturing, which is this question. I feel the same tension you do with old stuff. I'm probably more attracted to it than you are. But for me, the question of verifiability is really important. And that verifiability question, when I see old things, whether it's old things involving Jesus or God or Christianity or just old things in general, for me, I've got this level of certitude scale in my mind that affects how excited I should be about this thing. So, for example, if I go to Rome and I go to the Shrine of Santa Scala next to the St. John's Lateran complex, the home church of the Pope is not St. Peter's Basilica or the Vatican City. The Pope is the Bishop of Rome, and the capital church where the Bishop of Rome presides is St. John's Lateran. And on that compound, the mother of Constantine, Helena, in the 300s AD, went to Jerusalem with a whole bunch of money and all the authority of Rome and was like, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that, and we're bringing them all back to Rome with us. And she grabbed a bunch of things from Jesus' times, including the stairs to Pontius Pilate's palace. Now those stairs are in Rome, and there's a whole shrine built around them with beautiful sculptures depicting, there's the famous one of Jesus all beat up and Pontius Pilate next to him in Roman garb saying, "Behold the man." That one, very famous, is right there. And those stairs have been there for a super long time. Martin Luther in the 1500s climbed those stairs and got rushed up them. You can't walk up them. You can only pray up them on your knees. I've done that. There's a very high likelihood that Jesus of Nazareth himself climbed those same stairs.
That's cool.
See, now that's exciting to me.
Yeah. That's cool.
If it were a 5% chance, I don't care. But it's like a 90%, 95% chance that's them. There's no reason to think that isn't those stairs. Okay, well, that's more interesting to me. Then you go down the road to the church, the relic church in Rome that the same lady, Helena, mother of Constantine, founded. And she brought back some smaller artifacts, like the finger of Thomas. There's a shriveled up, grody human finger in there. Not kidding.
Really?
You know stuff about the Bible. Why would that particular pointer finger of Thomas be a big deal?
Because it was thrust into the side of Jesus.
Where the spear of Longinus stabbed Jesus in his side, the finger of Thomas later was like, "I'm not going to believe it until I touch it." And Jesus is like, "Cool, put your finger in my wound." And Thomas is like, "Oh, my Lord and my God." And Jesus says, "You believe because you saw. Blessed is he who believes but has not seen." And I think that kind of factors into this whole discussion about relics and whatnot. Well, I don't think that's probably his finger, so that is less compelling to me. The chains of St. Peter are in St. Peter's in Chains.
The finger bones of St. Thomas were discovered during the restoration work at the Church of St. Thomas in Mosul, Iraq in 1964. Huh. Wow.
So she didn't bring that one back.
Yeah.
My bad. But also, there's a provenance problem there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time without custody of that finger. Also, what do fingers look like after 2,000 years? I think they look worse than that.
For a long time, I had this little container. I think I got
finger.
some kind of machining bit in it, but it was a clear container, and I thought, man, that's a really nice container. It was plastic and had a little cap on the end. And so one day, I got a rock from the parking lot, and I put that rock in there as a joke to me. I wrote moon rock on the little container, and I just set it on my desk at work. And one day, my buddy Shorty came in there, and I was sitting there typing an email or whatever, and he came in to talk to me about something, and he looks at it and he goes, "Oh man, you got a moon rock." And I was like,
That's what it says.
it says it right there on the thing, man. It's a moon rock. And I remember thinking, huh. I wrote that as a joke. He read that as truth. I mean, we did a video recently, and we had a little container, me and my buddy George, and I wrote right on the container on some tape, "Cicadas do not eat," as a joke. And then when I came back, I put it right on the Brita water filter, "Cicadas do not eat." I thought that was funny. And then a friend was over, and they're like, "Hey, I wanted some water, but it says cicadas do not." And it made me remember, like, oh, huh. Yeah, so the chain of custody matters. I bought my grandfather a saber from the Civil War one time. Sure did. Bought that thing, and then he died. My grandfather died. He had it hanging above his mantle. And it said it was a officer's saber, and said CSA, because the Confederate States of America, because grandfather was a real big Civil War buff. I was like, man, he'd think that's really cool. So yeah, right above the fireplace that thing went. Then he died, and then I went and worked in Chattanooga, and I joined a metal detector club. And I said, man, I got something to show you guys. And I took that saber to the metal detector club and was like, check out this saber. I got my grandfather before he died. Really liked this thing. They're like, oh, that's adorable, Destin. I was like, what do you mean adorable? They're like, well, in the 60s, there was a huge glut of these things manufactured in Mexico and brought over the border and sold as relics. They are not. It's fake.
Huh.
And I was like, well, dadgum. So
it's like that Antique Roadshow thing where you got it just utterly embarrassed for having a fraud.
Yeah.
Or Pawn Stars or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, well, so what it comes down to is, if it's fake, it still had value. It made you think about the Civil War. It made you feel what a sword like that might feel like.
Good point.
Okay, so it still has some value to it. If it were real, it has more and different value. If you were 50-50 as to whether or not it was real and it couldn't be proven one way or another, it has more value than a replica, but less value than real. I think that's just the way the brain works in response to this stuff. And there have been a lot of relic claims over the history of Christianity and other religions. Most are very unreliable. Some are a lot more reliable. Those are interesting to me. That coin, that Pontius Pilate coin that you've seen it, you've held it, that's a big deal to me because I've tried to run the math on how many of those were made, how widely they were distributed, how often they got passed around, what the currency pressure was in those days, and how many people lived in that time, in that area where those coins were in circulation, because I want to do the math on how many of them I would have to buy to get to a near mathematical guarantee that one of those coins was in Jesus or the disciples' pocket.
Yeah.
How many do I need to be really sure? 100? 1,000? Because that'd be awesome to just grab my hands in a bucket of old coins and be like, one of these, I don't know which one, right now, I am almost certainly holding something Jesus held. But that's fun to me. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is fun.
It doesn't make me a Christian or a not Christian, but the relic thing got a little out of control in the Middle Ages. There was a team of like relic ninjas who went and raided the cathedral in Alexandria, Egypt on behalf of the Venetians because both Alexandria and Venice claimed Mark as their patron saint, but Alexandria had the remains. So the Venetians sent like ninja covert mission relic thieves to go get it and bring it back so that if you go to St. Mark's Cathedral on the square in Venice today, the reason that the relics of St. Mark are there is because I'm pretty sure the medieval Venetians stole it from the people in Alexandria, and that brought business and income big time to Venice, which is part of why Venice is still there and looks so cool.
Wow.
What?
That's amazing.
What?
One of my favorite YouTube channels is made by our good friend Brady Heron. It's called Objectivity.
Yeah.
The thing I love about Objectivity, it's Brady looking at stuff at the Royal Society, but I love it so much because Brady loves it. Like, he is fascinated by objects. Brady really, really likes really cool objects. And so that YouTube channel, he's not trying to play the internet game. He's like, this is just awesome. This story needs to be told, and I'm going to tell it. And he's doing it, and he's doing a great job of it. And I love Objectivity. I like checking out the Royal Society and seeing all the stuff they have there. Keith there, he's really cool. He shows you a lot of really cool stuff. I feel like you would enjoy that.
I would, and I have. And I think he's doing something special with what he does. And I like the way you said he's not playing the internet game, because that is different. It's a different play than how he's coming at it. In light of all of this, going back to this question, can you think of something that would be more tangible and more impressive than the cup that Jesus had at the Last Supper? If you knew it was real, what would be the coolest thing that one could survive until today, survive the elements, that is, and that two would have the most meaning, survivability and meaning? What would be cooler than the Holy Grail that you could find from Christianity today?
From Christianity. Yeah, the from Christianity part, that's another thing. Like you said, what's the coolest thing that could survive? And I instantly went to meteorites, and I was thinking about some of the meteorites that have different elements and stuff inside so you can see through them. But then you said that could survive, and then you went, what was the second thing you said?
Survivability and significance.
Significance. That was another one. Yeah, that's a hard one. Significance to humans.
Yeah, so if you found like the sandal of the leper who got healed in Matthew 8 right after the Sermon on the Mount.
Gotcha.
Oh, that'd be cool or whatever. But that's not the coolest.
I understand the exercise now. You're saying there might not be the body of Jesus, but it doesn't exist because he rose again.
That would ruin the whole thing.
Yeah, that would ruin Christianity.
No, Christians hope that does not get found.
Yeah.
For the record, that would be a terrible relic.
Yeah. So the Shroud of Turin, they tried really hard for that. I think a really, really cool one, might not be as good as the Holy Grail, would be the hammer of Jesus. I think that would be really, really cool.
Like the one he worked with as a kid when he was a carpenter?
Yeah. Doing his trade.
Huh.
I think that would be really interesting.
Huh.
I would like that if you were to bring me The verified hammer of Jesus.
Not the one he wielded in combat.
No. Yeah, I think that would be cool. The whip, maybe, that he drove the people out of the temple with. That'd be pretty rad.
Oh, because he made it.
Oh, yeah, he made that thing. That'd be pretty rad.
It'd be something made by Jesus.
Yeah, and used in anger. That'd be pretty legit. I like to think about the whip of Jesus because I've studied whips, and I think about it cracking the speed of sound. And so I like the idea of Jesus making a thing and then understanding the mechanics and the momentum transfer from the top of the whip down to the tip of the whip and cracking the speed of sound. I really enjoy that. That would be fun. I guess I understand the Holy Grail and why the Holy Grail is the Holy Grail. Is that what you're getting at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Maybe the shroud is the only other thing that would rival that.
The cross itself?
Yeah, but that would break down. I just don't see how that chunk of wood would make it 2,000 years reliably.
Yeah.
I mean, I can look at the timbers out here in my yard that are used for a retaining wall. They went in 10 years ago and they're shot. Yeah, I mean, the shroud is really interesting. I mean, it's almost perfect. Like, it would prove the resurrection. The Shroud of Turin is like a negative that is purported to show like a release of power or light when Jesus was resurrected. I am skeptical of that, for the record, but there are a lot of people, especially with recent investigation, who are feeling really high on the shroud. I don't know. I don't know. But the Holy Grail has got to be right up there. And historically, that's been the thing that was the metaphor for like, you got to find this. The power of God is in this item. You were talking way earlier on about like how far back this goes. And I don't know for sure how far back it goes, but I know that it was made famous because of its connection with the legend of King Arthur. That's always what King Arthur was trying to find, was the Holy Grail.
He didn't exist, right?
How did the Holy Grail... I think he probably did.
Okay.
Yeah, I bet he was some sort of small regional chieftain in like the 500s AD, before like the medieval kingdoms of England started to emerge, like under Alfred the Great and people like that. I don't think he was probably a real big deal. I think his story just caught on. And it was sort of this idealization of justice, and I don't know. The Holy Grail thing, the whole idea was that somehow the Holy Grail ended up in England. Well, that's very fun if you're an English Christian to imagine that this thing is on your turf and that like a, E.T. or the Goonies, you could just ride your bikes out the back of your medieval hovel with your buddies and go look in like a mossy cave or something in England, and the Holy freaking Grail might be in there. I mean, that's pretty enchanting, right?
Yeah.
We wished that something awesome was in caves and the little forests we went and explored when we were kids. I mean, it brings it home. And one of the challenges of Christianity is that it all happened in real time at a real place, but it was very far away. So it doesn't surprise me at all that this kind of claim to fame caught on in England. There's some historical reason to think maybe this is the case. Joseph of Arimathea, the guy who donated the tomb for Jesus to be in very briefly, he is said to have made his way to England, maybe. Pontius Pilate, one of the rumors about what happened to him after he fades into the mist of history. Some people say that he went to Lyon, France. Some people say that he went to some high lake in the Swiss Alps and drowned himself out of guilt, and you can still see his ghost there to this day on full moons. That's actually a legend. It's really a thing. Some other people say he went to England. So you got two guys who could have ended up with the Holy Grail who went to England. I mean, it could be. And so then what would a noble Christian court do? Well, they would try to go find the Holy Grail and restore it to its rightful place of veneration. So you get all the Arthur legends and everything about it. And that's kind of what ties into the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade movie that you brought up. I don't know. If you knew the Holy Grail was there, would you want to go look?
I don't know. If it was like in a county over, would I go? Yeah, I mean, if I knew it was the actual thing, maybe. Yeah, probably so. Yeah, I guess I would.
But what if you didn't know? Like, what if you were even pretty sure that it wasn't, but everybody was just excited about it? I mean, to what degree do you feel a draw toward a quest for the sake of a quest?
To find the Holy Grail. What is your quest? Yeah, I don't know, man. I guess the whole concept just seems silly to me. Like, the whole thing seems silly.
All right. Well, you're a very practical man.
I don't know.
Whether you think it's silly or not, Holy Grail, as you know, it's become a metaphor for the thing that if you found it, It solves everything in every discipline.
Yes.
What are the holy grails in your discipline? What is the holy grail of rocketry, for example?
The Saturn V. It's the Holy Grail.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we found it. So that one's already done. We're
Yeah.
done with rocketry then.
Yeah. No.
There's no quest.
We're
There's
not.
no yearning.
We're not. The Holy Grail after that was reusability, which SpaceX is cracking, which is great.
Great.
So, okay. So what is the Holy Grail of things is what you're asking?
Yeah. Well, what is it? Yeah. What is the holy grail of things that you're into? Like, what is the thing that, like, oh my goodness, if we found that, that solves everything. That answers so many questions.
So the Holy Grail of cryptocurrency is the Satoshi hoard.
What does that mean?
Yeah, the initial, I forget how many how many Bitcoins it is, but there's this hoard of Bitcoins that is believed to be lost. And so the thought is Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever that is, or if that's even a human, when Bitcoin was created, this big stash of Bitcoins is assumed to have been on a hard drive somewhere, and it's gone.
It feels like Ready Player One.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and
The vault. Yeah.
and so I would say in the modern world, that is the closest equivalent to the Holy Grail, and that would be the Satoshi hoard. I think that's what they call it. That's what I call it.
What about an intellectual treasure? What about in rocketry and space travel? What is the thing? If you could crack that, it opens up the whole universe or opens up the next explorable level.
Yeah, so EM Drive, Warp Drive. So there was this guy in Houston. I met him, and I didn't have a camera rolling, but I went into his lab, and he claimed to have created this thing called EM Drive, which is, it seemed to violate the laws of thermodynamics. And so you could use solar power to create thrust on a spacecraft, and you didn't have to react against another force. And so it seemed to be an open looped system. So basically, as long as I had electricity, I could push, and then my fuel would never go away. And if that were to be true, then you could just start accelerating and not stop.
But don't you want to stop?
Well, I mean, yeah, but you could just go towards the speed of light, and so it would make interstellar travel possible. It would greatly decrease the time required to get places. It would open up a lot of things. And so warp drive, like Star Trek, warp drive and EM drive, things like that. That is, I remember looking at it was a microwave device and a horn, and I said, can I look at the data? And so we were sitting there talking about it, and he was showing, yeah, you get this many micronewtons of thrust. And I was like, okay, I'm seeing that. And I remember thinking that the way it ramped up and cooled down, I remember thinking, this looks like an instrumentation offset. I haven't read much about EM Drive lately, but I never read what came out of that. But I remember being fascinated by it. I ultimately decided not to make a Smarter Every Day about it at the time because I didn't understand it enough, and I didn't want to make a video about something that might not be true. And so I rolled the dice on that one. But I think warp drive would be huge. It would unlock so many different things. If we could unlock, and there are several scientists that have claimed to have done this, gravity repulsion technology. There is a scientist from Huntsville, Alabama. She was oh gosh, I'm going to get so much of this story wrong, but there was a scientist that was working on anti-gravity technology back in the 90s, and she just went away. She's just gone. And so there's a lot of people that talked about what happened to the gravity lady. Let me find her name. Uncovering the Huntsville Business Journal, uncovering the mystery of Huntsville's brilliant anti-gravity scientist. Dr. Ning Lee's son talks about his mom's career and legacy along with the internet's obsession with her so-called disappearance. So I don't know. I don't know anything about that, but I do know that if you could somehow create a force without expending a fuel, that's the holy grail of rocketry. What's the holy grail of archaeology? I guess that's the holy grail, isn't it? No, or it'd be like finding all the books of the Bible intact, like the scrolls from Paul, right?
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, an original autograph of the Bible, of anything from the ancient world, would be unbelievable. I can't think of any originals from that far back. I would think anything that we have now, someone deemed important and copied it. And it got copied a lot if we still have it now, be it Caesar or Homer or Marcus Aurelius or the Apostle Paul. Somebody thought it was important and copied it. And the closer to when it was originally written that copy dates, the more important people of that time likely viewed it to be. Because it takes a lot of copies of the same thing written on paper or parchment to make the trip thousands of years into the future. You got to have X number in order for one to even have a chance of partially surviving. So, no, an original autograph of the Book of Galatians would be mind-boggling.
I was reading in Joshua the other day, and there was a book referenced in Joshua. I just looked it up. It's the Book of Jasher.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking, oh, what's the Book of Jasher? And I went to some of my materials. I was like, what is it? And then they're like, it's lost to history. I remember thinking,
yeah, we don't know.
Oh, crap.
I'd really like to have that.
Yeah, that'd be great. The Book of Iddo, Iddo.
Uh-huh. The Book of Giants. We have a little bit, a few hints of whatever that ancient book was.
What? I don't know about the Book of Giants.
I want to know what the Book of Giants is.
Wait, was that the guy, Anak? Is that the big giant? His name was Anak?
I don't know, but it seems like a good giant name. I also think like Stomp Thor would be a good name for a giant.
Stomp Thor would be good, yeah.
I think that was probably it.
Where's the Book of Giants?
I think another thing that would be
No.
Dude,
Where's the Book of Giants?
Dude, I don't have anything to pull on that thread. I don't know.
Is it referenced in the
think
Bible?
Part of it is maybe it's referenced indirectly, maybe. I don't know. I don't know this for sure. There is a book called Enoch that is referenced briefly in a little letter in the New Testament. And that book of Enoch, I think, contains part of the Book of Giants.
What?
Or it did originally. My facts might not be straight. There is something like that.
Mm.
When I read about Persia, there is the implication from Herodotus and other of the very few early sources on the Golden Age of Persia, which is 500s and 400s BC, that indicate that when Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, there were things there that were so old, forgotten technology, forgotten art, forgotten meanings, that the Babylonians didn't know, and the people before the Babylonians didn't know in this ancient city, and they were just still there. It was like a town that was modern, but the ghosts were still there as well. There was a concept in 538 BC, 539 BC, the year of the conquest of Babylon by Persia. There was a concept of ultra ancient times. And who knows? It's just gone. So one of the holy grails in my field would be anything that ties us back to the lost civilizations that predate Babylon and Assyria and what little we know about the Akkadian Empire. Something perfectly preserved that would unlock that. A lot of people think that there must have been earlier advanced eras of civilization and that they swung into dark ages, and that history as we know it is sort of a re-emergence from a dark age, and the first 12 chapters of Genesis are sort of a nod to a previous advanced age, that almost all the knowledge of that was lost. I don't know. I have no idea. But one of the holy grails in my field would be any kind of unlocking of older civilizations that we know must have existed. It's kind of like a black hole. We can tell something's there because of the gravitational pull.
That's why the Antikythera mechanism is so amazing.
Yes, it represents knowledge that was lost. My point is that, okay, one, the impulse toward relics is not something just for certain types of religious people, Catholics or Orthodox. Everybody has some sort of value of relic veneration or relic appreciation. Even a very practically minded person like you know that something that's old that tells a story has value. Our buddy Brady Heron, he values relics. He values them maybe differently than others, but everybody has some value on hard to replace old things that connect you to something that happened in the past that mattered. Everybody has a sense that that is a big deal. Everybody cares about, on this spot, on this date, so-and-so famous person did this thing. It matters. It connects us to our past. It reminds us we don't live in a vacuum. Second thing, all claims of relics and important history things are on a sliding scale of reliability. Some of them are very dubious, and some of them you can really validate. How much anything matters to me really depends on where it lands on that scale, and I sense that you're kind of the same way in that regard. Third, the Holy Grail is kind of the Holy Grail of Holy Grails. It's the thing that is the metaphor for that thing that you know it's there and you know it means so much and it would connect you with the past and give you answers, but you can't quite grasp it. And so you quest and quest and quest. It's a metaphor for obtaining the thing that would satisfy all of your curiosity and all of your life's work and answer so many of those questions. But its unobtainability is part of the metaphor. You're not going to find the Holy Grail. You're not going to. Or it wasn't the Holy Grail. It was something that points you toward whatever the actual Holy Grail is. And I just think it's really cool that that little item that gets passing mention in the Bible is the item that, at least in our culture, we have fixated on as the metaphor for that thing. Very meaningful, very old, very connected to the most important stuff. Answers are held within, but it's just beyond the grasp of what we can go and get as people in all of our questing.
The good thing is you won't have
Thanks for jumping on. I want to tell you a story.
Yeah, you bet, man. Sorry I sound weird. I got a little bit sick this week.
No, it's all good. So we just got back from this Texas thing, the Independent Media Initiative Conference or Festival or whatever. Did you like it?
Yes, we did. I liked it a lot. Yeah, I really had fun.
So how was your flight back?
How was my flight back? Fine. They had a flight attendant didn't show up in Austin. So we almost didn't make it to Denver in time to catch the connection. I thought, oh, that's kind of odd. There's shy one flight attendant, which I thought was kind of an odd reason for a delay. I didn't know that was a thing. But in the end, it all worked out. Wasn't, too big an inconvenience or anything. How about your flight back?
Yeah, I had a similar situation in Austin, actually. So when we first started, we didn't have a pilot. And they said, oh, okay, like we were loading the plane. And they're like, we don't have a captain. It's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I don't know why they do that. Planes are weird these days, man.
Not have a captain? No, yeah. I don't know why they wouldn't do that either. You want there to be someone to fly it. Did they ask if anybody knew how to fly a plane? Kind of like where they ask for a doctor sometimes?
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody here know how to fly a commercial airline or anything?
When they were loading, we were loading, and you know how when you load, you're like, oh, I'm next to the crying baby. I'm next to the whatever. There was a whimpering dog like 2 rows behind me. I could hear it go, ow, 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 and I was like, oh, man, dog. What do you think when you hear a dog on the plane making noise like that? What are your thoughts?
I don't think I've ever had that happen. I don't know what I would think. I'm not a coward. I've just never been tested. What were your thoughts?
I'm not a coward. I've just never been. So I have opinions about dogs on planes. I actually have a family member that for a long time worked for one of these companies that helped people get, I don't know, what is it, like a certification so that you can say, oh, this is my support dog. Have you seen these things?
Yeah, I've seen them. Some of them say, it's my support dog, pet the dog, or it's my support dog, don't pet the dog. It's like the dog only supports you.
Yeah. There's working dogs like, hey, I'm blind and need a seeing eye dog, or I have diabetes and this dog can smell when I'm exhaling a certain chemical and tells me when I need to, my sugar's getting low. It's things like that.
Isn't that something, by the way? Yeah.
Have you experience with that? Like a dog that does that? A working dog?
No, there's a kid at school with my kids who had a working dog like that. I don't know how it smells blood sugar being off, but it could smell and it would alert. It's just amazing to me.
So when the kid is low on blood sugar, does the dog run up to it with a little barrel under its neck and pull out a little needle with insulin and just jab it into the kid's heart or something? Is that how it works?
Yep. Exactly. I think that's exactly it. I think the dog actually has insulin in its fangs, like Komodo dragons have venom, and it just bites the kid and breaks the skin.
That's
but
how it
there's
works?
Insulin in the bite. I think so. I didn't ever see it delivered. That's all I could think of.
When you were a kid, do you remember the cartoons of the Saint Bernard with the little barrel of whiskey under its neck?
Heck yeah, for sure. Isn't that a thing?
Was
that just a cartoon thing? Because I think it's a thing, right? The Saint Bernards are big enough to carry along something. Was it a bottle of whiskey? I thought it was just a compartment for delivering stuff and helping to drag things around, because it's a German dog, right? It's Saint Bernard.
I don't know. It just, in all the cartoon memories I have, the dog, if you were dying in the cold, this dog would run up to you and it had booze in a little keg under its neck.
What cartoon were you watching?
I don't know, man.
Where they saved people's lives with alcohol. I didn't watch that one. That never happened in G.I. Joe, man. No, that doesn't ring a bell. I mean, the barrel rings a bell. It being full of booze to save people's lives, when somebody fell into a well or something. I don't remember that part.
I think working dogs are amazing.
I think so, too.
I remember my neighbor growing up. She was blind, and she had a seeing eye dog named Angus. I remember she would go outside to let her dog poop, and it was the most interesting thing. She would take the dog outside. I was very good friends with her, and the dog would poop, and then she had a Ziploc bag, and she would put it on her hand, and then she knew kind of roughly where the dog was standing at the time it defecated, and she would kneel down and just feel around with her hand until she found the turd.
Oh, dear.
And she would grab the turd through the Ziploc bag, and then she would flip the Ziploc bag inside out. And she did that so she wouldn't step in the turd at a later time. I thought that was fascinating.
That was fascinating, too. How do we get on working dogs? Wait, you're going to tell me that there was no pilot, and then all of a sudden, Banjo, the airplane flying Weimaraner, pops up and flew you home to northern Alabama.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's a good
Working dogs, man. They just blow your mind.
pilot working dog. No, this is a really interesting thing that happened, and I would like to get your opinion on the situation. So we got in the airplane, finally got a pilot, everything starts going. They shut the door, we get everything going, and this dog, I can still hear it whimpering back there. I hear kind of like a commotion. No, it's not, I don't know really what it was, but somebody gets out of their seat while we're taxiing and like goes to the luggage or something like above the seat. And the flight attendant comes back and they start talking, and I'm already doing something on my phone or something. I'm just not paying attention. But then I hear the voices get a little louder. And I kind of turn around and I hear the flight attendant say, "Ma'am, you have to put the dog under the seat." And the lady said, "Well, they let me hold her on the way over here." And the flight attendant says, "Okay, that I understand, but our policy is the dog has to be under the seat." And the lady said, "Well, it's my support dog. This is my support dog." Basically, this dog was like whimpering. It wasn't anything crazy as far as dogs go, but the woman would put it under the seat. The woman was like, "I need to get its anxiety medicine."
Wait, she does the emotional support for the dog? Which way does the emotional support go?
Right. So the whole time this is happening.
No, I'm not even joking. I'm trying to understand. Was this a pet and she was doing a play on words and she needed to provide emotional support to the dog? Or was she saying, this is not a pet, this is an emotional support dog, but my emotional support dog is having an emotional breakdown?
Exactly. You nailed it. And so I was texting with a buddy at this time. We were in the middle of like exchanging information, and I was like, "Man, you'll never believe what just happened." So I'm texting him. He goes, "So is this like an alternate reality where the woman is so chill they prescribed her an anxiety dog?" It's so like, hey, you were way too chill. You got to have something to stress you out. So here's this dog that's dumb, and you got to take it everywhere. I'm like, what the heck? As I started to understand what was going on, I was like, oh, well, this is a simple, and so the flight attendant says, "Look, are you going to be able to put the dog under the seat?" And the lady goes, "Well, I mean, we can try it." And the flight attendant says, "That's not how this works. You either put it under the seat and it stays there for this 2-hour flight, or you can't. You just tell me which one you want to do, and that's what we're going to do." And the woman kept giving like these really cagey answers. Like, "Well, I mean, yeah, we can try it." And she was like, "No, I don't think you understand. This is the point of decision." And she goes, "Well, this is my...
Do or do not.
This is my emotional
There's
support
no try
dog."
in this situation.
And she appealed to that.
So,
like, this is my support dog. Like, this is my truth, and you have to acknowledge my truth kind of thing. That's the vibe it was projecting. And
yeah, I can hear it.
And I just got pretty miffed. And I was like, I don't like this. And so this is my ultimate question. Where are you at on the whole thing of emotional support dogs in the airports? Because I got off the flight, and as soon as I got off the flight, I walk out of the gate. We eventually, what happened is somebody got up and got medication for the dog, and they just kept going back and forth. And finally, the flight attendant just walked to the front, and the pilot came over and goes, "Hey, I'm sorry about this, but as you probably know in the back, we have a dog on board with anxiety. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull over to the next gate, and we're going to get this passenger and this dog off the flight." He just said it, and you could hear the groans like, "Oh, yeah, are you serious?" You could hear everybody on the flight.
Wow.
Yeah. There were about 200 people on this flight, and there was one individual that she couldn't yield. The obvious thing to do is to shove the dog in your little dog carrier and shove it under the seat and just shut up.
Yes.
That's how we go forward with our day. No.
That's how we move forward. Mm-hmm.
So what would you do in that situation? What would you do?
If I were the lady with the dog, or I'm you?
No, I know what you would do. You would shove the dog in the little thing, and you would.
I wouldn't have the dog on the plane in the first place. You're incorrect.
Oh, really?
There would be no dog. No, I'm not taking my dog on an airplane. Come on.
Well, you can fly with a dog. I'm cool with flying
Yeah.
with a dog. What I'm not cool with
Why?
is pretending.
Why are you cool with that?
Why?
That is a huge variable that you cannot control in a flying tube in the atmosphere.
Okay.
I understand that other people do it and they trust that their dog is super well regulated, but I think my dog is fantastic. Maya's a great dog.
Maya would do fine.
I think.
Yeah,
but
she
what
would.
if she didn't?
But here's
But
the
what if she didn't?
I
Then
know-
200 people don't get to go to their destination on time. I mean, the amount of money. Do you remember there was one individual at this event that we were just at who was talking to a group of us about why they're so careful with what they do and don't put in their videos. And do you remember what this guy said about why he's very careful not to put dumb jokes or waste any time in his videos?
Absolutely, and that was Shane. Stuff Made Here. Shane said, "Yeah, if I put a joke in my video, it's like 100. No, he's like it's 1,000,000 life hours of human life. So it's the equivalent of me killing a person in terms of wasted human life."
Yes.
He's like,
That's
"So I'm-
what it is. You're destroying human capital.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't bring Maya on a flight, even though she's the best pet I've ever had, because she's untested. I've never had her in that environment. I think she'd be fine, but if she weren't, the consequences, the loss of time, the interference, there probably somebody on that flight has someone who's dead or dying who they're holding back tears to go and see. And my dog just gets the squirts and then panics and freaks out. And now we have a dog diarrhea emergency. Everybody's going into full meltdown mode. And it's me. That was my fault. I'm so sorry. You're not going to get to see your dad. I'm sure he'll understand. My dog that was here to make me feel better got the squirts.
it's
It's just-
interesting.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to take the risk.
It's a
So no, I
very
would not take my dog on the plane. That's the first thing I would do. If I did, even though my dog is a 45-pound Pomsky, yes, I would do the waffle stomp heel mash technique to cram my dog with both feet under the seat in front of me. And then anytime she tried to peek out with her face, I would make the "stop it, you're embarrassing" flustered mom in Walmart sound at her. "Stop it, you're embarrassing me. Get back under there." I would say that for 2 hours until we got to our destination. That's
Yeah.
what I would do. What would you do?
So this is what I thought originally. I thought, man, this is so dumb. Like, first of all, just put the dog under the seat, and even if it whimpers, it's fine. The dog's under the seat. The flight attendant's happy. Everything's good. It's great. Whatever. I've got headphones. Other
Everyone
people
has noise-canceling headphones.
Yeah,
Everyone has them.
Exactly. We're gonna put these on, and we're just gonna get there. It's 2 hours. Not a big deal. When the pilot made the announcement, I'm gonna pull over. The lady next to me had a pretty interesting response. You know, she was just sitting there scrolling on her phone, and I said, "Are you serious? She couldn't just put the dog under the seat?" You know, I was like doing the thing where I whine a
You
little
said
bit.
that to the lady, or you just said it?
I said that to the
To
lady
space.
next to me. I was like, can you believe this? You know, I was trying to get like a sympathetic ear. And she said, "Actually, I have compassion for her." And I said, "What?" That's how I said it. I didn't be like, "Oh yeah." I just said, "What?" And she goes, "No, dogs are really important. And you know, we've got a little baby dog, or I mean that dog's her baby. And we've got a little dog like that too. And yeah, I just feel, I mean, like, think about how hard it's going to be for her to walk off this plane. That's going to be really hard." And then I got to thinking in my head, am I the bad person here? Am I bad?
Where are you at on that question now, given a couple days to think about it?
Well, I don't know. I thought about it long and hard, and I was like, you know, I got it. That dog is very important to her. I still don't think, like, if you know the dog has anxiety problems, you probably shouldn't, bring the dog with you. I mean, if you have a dog that has been prescribed medication, that's a pretty big indicator that you don't need to travel with this dog, I would say.
Yes.
So
Yes.
anyway, the lady walks off the plane, and her life partner, boyfriend, husband, whatever, walks off with her. And there's a guy from New York in front of me, sitting right in front of me. He had enough, and he just needed to, I don't know how things work where he's from, but he just needed to do a little outburst. I'm just going to do, aimed at no one. He said, are you something kidding me? And he used colorful language. "Are you kidding me? I'm on an airplane and we have a dog with anxiety, and that's why I'm going to be late, and that's why I'm going to miss my connection, and that's why I'm not going to get home. And I thought to myself, this man is making a valid point.
Everything he said is valid. The question is, say it or not.
Right. And everybody on the plane was pretty chill. That guy just said what everybody was thinking. And then the lady, the dog, and her dude walked off the plane. And then the guy walked back. He's like, we forgot the medication or the little feeding tube. There's a tube of food or something. He came back on to get something they misplaced for the dog. And then the guy did a little outburst. Wasn't crazy. I wish he hadn't said a bad word, but he did. But he said this, and then the guy that came to get the dog feeding tube cut him a glance like, say it again, I'll beat you up. And I thought to myself, dude, you're on the plane getting a little feeding tube of niblets for the dog. You're not going to do anything to this dude. You can look at him all you want, but I think we're on his side here. So just get your little thing, do your little walk of shame. And get off the plane.
Shame. That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm picturing the bell. I'm picturing the nun. The whole thing. What an awful walk. Ew.
It revealed something about my soul. I thought to myself, I have very little compassion for these people right now. I feel like if she had just dropped her pride and just, as you said, waffle stomped her dog into the little thing, then everything would be fine. We'd hear some whimpering, but we'd get there. But no, you made us all late. And so I thought the flight attendant handled it perfectly. She's like, these are the choices, A or B. What would you like to do? Well, I don't know. Okay, great. Sounds like you can't answer the question. That's an automatic B. Therefore, because obviously what's going to happen is we're going to start flying and you're going to pull that dog out. Can't allow that. Okay, we're going to get you and the dog off the flight.
Yeah, and if that's the policy, it's that simple. And then she did handle it right. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to get your take on the whole situation. When I got off the flight, I exited the plane and I saw like 4 other dogs. I saw a huge German Shepherd looking dog that it looked like a military dog, and it had a muzzle on it, and it had a little thing on the side that said support dog. And I was like, that feels like an attack dog. And then there was another one, and they were like chilling out and walking their dogs in the concourse together. And I was like, are those cops that are like doing the drug smelly dog thing? And I looked, nope, those aren't cops. Those are just people with little rolly bags and an attack dog. And I just thought, man, I think we're out of control on this. Thoughts?
I think we might be out of control on this, but dude, this is a fork in the road in the conversation right here. Like, if we really want to pull on this thread, it's reflective of a whole societal thing. And okay, you pulled on it. Never mind. I'm gonna do this. You said thoughts. I'm gonna give you thoughts. Here's what I think happened, Destin. I think that the post-war order of the 20th century highly prized having kids and doing family. Then I think everybody aged out and they went to church and social groups. They coached our baseball teams. They taught us in our schools in the 80s, 90s, and the very beginning of the 2000s in our country, in the West in general. And they did their dang best to encourage us and give us the things that had been life-giving to them. Knowledge, social structure, art, religion. They did their best, but none of the old people who tried to hand us the inheritance of the second half of the 20th century anticipated MySpace. Then MySpace happened and people started to really pick it up in 04, 05, and everyone just naively got out their little computer and went out onto the internet and was like, here are things that I got told by Mr. Tackett in algebra class, and here's a thing my coach told me one time in the locker room, and this is what I heard at youth group from Earl and Tammy, and it did not go well. And everybody was like, holy crap, this language that worked internally for me is not working externally in the larger world. And I think everybody had this gigantic moment of identity crisis and panic, and it all added up to one giant cultural identity crisis where everyone felt bad. Not everybody knew why, because we had all these new toys and gadgets and things, and we could be entertained 24/7, but we still felt crappier. And we were like, maybe if we just had the gadgets and the video games in our hands all the time, we would finally be happy.
We
invented those, and it didn't make people happy.
Hey, you're word vomiting. I'm going to stop you for a second. Hey, speaking of which, have you read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt? Have you read that?
Yes.
You read it? We both read it.
Yes,
What are your thoughts on it?
I liked it.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, all the time. You got your gadgets in your hands all the time. Keep going.
Are you sure? Because
Yeah.
you were like, here's a question. And I was like, well, do you want the adult answer or do you want the one that's just like just fodder?
Keep
It just
going. I'm
takes a minute
sorry.
to actually
I'm
answer
sorry.
a question like that, man.
My
It's
hair was
hard.
blown back. Keep going. Keep going.
Well, good on you for having that be an option for you. So, I'm jealous. So, I think we all just got really sad when we took all of the entertainment and everything that we'd been developing for the last 20 years and we put it in our pocket and we could use the entertainment and have access to the entertainment and pet the entertainment with our index finger anytime we wanted. The entertainment rectangle could put us to sleep at night and we didn't feel better. We felt worse. And so I think that the emotional support animals are a product of that. We went through a period of madness where we didn't know what we believed and we didn't know how right and wrong worked. And we thought maybe the government could tell us, and I don't think they really know. We thought maybe celebrities could tell us. I don't think they really know. A lot of people were kind of burned and sad by religion at that point. So there was a disconnect there. We don't trust advertisers. I think we just kind of had to run through a dark and difficult period because I think we're on a seam between two huge epochs in the history of human thought. And we're guinea pigs. We've never been here before. And I think understandably it's difficult and it made people sad. And it's hard to put your finger on why. And petting a dog or a cat, you know what? You sit there and you look at that dog and you're like, life is so simple for you. And you're always so happy to see me. This is great. This is simple. And I need this simple happy from time to time. And I think that's why the support dog thing happened. So do I think it is a mark of whatever curse of new modern Western weakness we feel? Yes, I do. Also, I don't want people to be sad, and I understand why petting a dog makes a person feel better. So I guess that's my thought on it.
I have a family member that used to work for an outfit that would help you get the emotional support dog.
Okay.
And they actually have doctors involved. Like the doctor will say, oh, yeah, you definitely need an emotional support dog. Like sometimes the doctor gets involved and writes you a prescription for the dog, and then now you have a support
Then insurance pays for it?
I don't know about that. Maybe so. I don't know. But I didn't ask that question. I don't know, man.
Well, then does insurance pay for the food?
That's man, that'd be awesome. That'd be really cool.
If you have a prescribed dog, insurance should pay for the food and the little medicine, the anxiety medicine. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I've never had an emotional support dog. I just have a normal, boring dog.
Maybe that's why the guy had to come back on the plane.
Maybe so. Can't fill the prescription again. It's a prescription. It's really easy from a distance for me to just feel annoyed because airports are frustrating. Airport travel is frustrating. I did have an incident on my flight as I was getting off the plane that was born out of frustration, and it did involve me, and it did involve a confrontation with another passenger, and I forgot about it until
You confronted somebody?
Yes, I did.
What'd you do?
I'm sitting in my seat, flying to Rapid City. It's about an hour flight from Denver, and everything's fine. It's a great flight. There are two delightful, very old ladies sitting across the aisle from me. This plane has 2 seats per side of the aisle, so it's 4 wide total. Not a big plane. It's Rapid City. I think they were sisters. I mean, I'm just glancing over and stuff, but they had clearly been on some kind of adventure together. One of them, I would guess, was in her 90s. The other was in her 80s, and the younger one was helping the older one, but I think they were sisters, staying young and having adventures together.
I like these people already.
They were great. There was a kid behind us who, I don't know, I'd say somewhere between 18 and 20, kind of doing the dark, bleak personal presentation thing, which is sad. Like making yourself ugly on purpose means probably bad things have happened to you. I get it. I've done counseling for a long time. I get it. Things aren't going well. There's no connection to be made. It's Rapid City. This is your final destination. You're not connecting through Rapid. No one needs to make a connection. No one needs to run off the plane. It's a tiny airport. You've been through it. Not a big deal.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Well, these two old ladies were, thank you. These 2 old ladies were going to need a minute. And frankly, so were some of the older couples in front of us. But this kid shoved his way past several families who were just starting to stand up and was not deboarding the plane properly or respectfully. A couple rows back, a mom said, "Hey, man, That's not how you do it, because I looked back and saw the end of him pushing past her daughter, a little girl. And I didn't like that very much. I have little girls. I didn't like it. He was being rude. It's stupid. That's like a metaphor for the decay of civilization. I don't like it. Just get up when it's your turn, grab your things quickly, and get off the plane. It's right and it's respectful. So he decided he was going to push past these old ladies. So I got up and I used my body to physically box him out. I put my butt into his backpack that he was carrying in front of him. And I stood up and I turned and I faced him. And I said, like the lady said back there, that's not how it's done. And we're going to let these two women get off the plane because it's their turn. Then you and I will walk off the plane. And I'd like it if you'd remember this conversation the next time you fly.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. I've seen this starting to happen. Like, it's like, dong, the little dinger goes off when the square people pipe pulls up to the side of the plane. And it's like it's in certain cities that you fly. It's like a sprint to the front. And recently I noticed it happened when I flew to Alabama. And I was like, whoa, no. We don't do this. All right. I'm proud of you, dude, because I've always wanted to do this, but I'm usually by the window. That's my preferred seat. But yeah, I'm with you on this. And if this guy opens his mouth to you in this story, then I think the next step should be you waffle stomping him into a little compartment under the seat.
Yes, that's exactly. He did open his mouth to me, as a matter of fact. The story goes on. He said, I apologize.
Oh.
I said, it's cool, man. Let's let these ladies go. He said, okay. And that was it.
That's awesome. He apologized and it was over.
Yeah, he apologized and it was over.
That's fantastic.
Yep. He was a kid. He was being a jerk. Somebody called him on it and he adjusted his behavior. That's pretty good.
When you had this confrontation, what was the volume of your voice? Did you say it just for him, or did you say it a little bit louder so people around him could hear as well?
I said it in the low, confident, slow, this is how it is, deep eye contact with both eyes facing you directly voice.
The silverback
and everyone
gorilla.
seemed to really enjoy that. The people behind were giddy. They were delighted by how that went. Yeah, I had support on this issue.
That's great, man. I'm proud of you.
Okay, but then what happens if the kid's like, real star hip hop, and just punches me in the mouth? Like, what do you do at that point then?
Well, I mean, I think you just chokehold him and put him on the ground or whatever. Yeah, so.
No.
You don't think so?
No, I think you just have to let him punch you at that point. Seriously, I think this is what I would do. I think I would be like, I am not fighting you and I am not going to fight you, even though you punched me. And I keep saying that really loudly with my hands down, trying to back away because I want to still be allowed to fly in airplanes. I want to fly to places and I would not like to be stripped of that privilege.
Interesting.
So,
interesting.
It's a high risk move, but I don't know. I sized him up, I measured him, and I felt this is a lesson I could impart to him. He will remember it, and he does not have the physical capacity to even bluster at me. And he did not.
That's good, man. I think that's good. I don't think the dog situation warranted like that level of confrontation. I think everybody was kind of like eye roll, like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I don't know. I've also been in situations where, there's like a baby that's unruly or something like that, and that's a very difficult situation. Your heart just goes out to people in that time. You're like, man, this is hard for them. I remember one time I was flying and we had a little bit of turbulence and the lady next to me was terrified. Like she was white knuckling the armrest. She was really, really scared.
Yeah.
And so I turned to her and I said, hey, how are you doing? And she's like, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I was like, will you hold my hand? And I held her hand and she's like, thank you. This is actually helping. And I was like, yeah, great. And so I just held her hand till we landed. I didn't tell her. I was like losing blood flow to my fingers because she was squeezing it so hard. But it was great.
Airplanes increasingly feel like a moment where you are supposed to go into this tube. Once you pass through all the screening and all your stuff has been accounted for, you're now not a person until you walk back out of security. Your conduct is different. You think differently. You engage with the world around you differently. But the reality is people are still people on airplanes and they still have babies and sometimes they have to go somewhere with their baby. You can't be mad. I've seen people who make no effort to restrain or discipline their children. That's different. But if mom and dad's trying and the kid isn't flying well, they're a kid. And so was I once. It's hard to be a kid, and it's hard to sit still. So I get it. But it does feel like increasingly there's this vibe with air travel where you just turn off humanity for a while, go into your weird little bubble, and then you just turn it back on, and now you're a person again. You hug people once you're past security, and you laugh about things again. And then you talk at a normal volume level again, and you don't antisocially wear headphones around everyone in public again. It really is a very unusual time, and I don't enjoy air travel. I haven't done much of it recently. But I feel weird. I like being a person, but it just feels like it kind of doesn't work in airports.
Yeah, I think you're right. And one of the things I do when I fly is I've recently started this. All the people that's making it happen, for example, the janitor in the bathroom, the custodian that's sweeping the floor, the person pulling the trash, the guy at the end of the gate that's taking checked bags outside to put them under the plane, I go out of my way to speak to those people because I can imagine living in that environment where you're just zombified moving from one place to another. Imagine being around that many people all day long and being treated like you're not a person. You're just kind of like an accessory to me getting from point A to point B. I think that'd be very, very difficult. And so I've been going out of my way to speak to those people recently, and it's worked really well, I think. Do you do that?
Your words have affected me because if someone's greeting me, I try to be extra friendly with the people taking my ticket or whatever. I always greet all of the flight attendants and thank them coming and going. But all the other people, basically, if somebody is wearing a vest that is brightly colored, I think I've gotten the habit of just tuning them out. How would that feel? It's already a tune out other people place, and then you put on that specific color is meant to tell everyone else this is an NPC. Like, this is part of the backdrop of your grand story of travel and everything else. Don't worry about it. They're operating in the background. But no, I would like to say that I've been going out of my way to greet the guy who's taking the bags at the end of the square people pipe and all that, but I haven't been. I've kind of been living on my little headphones. I think I'm going to take a cue from you here and see if I can do a little better on that.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to talk to you about the dog incident. I was just wondering what your thoughts were. I personally think that the working dog versus the support dog pendulum has swung too far. And I think there should be an option for flying with your dogs. I just don't know what that should be. But I don't think it should be as easy as, hey, I've got this little piece of paper from this 1-800-SupportDogRus.com thing. I don't think it should be that easy because I think it inconveniences.
It's like how people get ordained to perform their friend's wedding.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Ordination.com or whatever, yeah.
Is that a thing? Ordination.com?
I don't know what it is. I mean, that's what I would call it if I were starting that website.
Yeah.
Hey, this episode of No Dumb Questions is brought to you by GetASupportDogRx.com.
Man.
Destin,
No.
What do you love about GetASupportDogRx.com?
I don't want to do this. Like my position is that we shouldn't do this. Can we jingle out? Is there something else we can jingle
Yes.
to?
It's not brought to you by them. Don't do it. It's not a thing. Don't go to that website. It's probably something really bad.
It probably
Don't.
is.
It's not a thing. We're so sorry. We didn't mean it. Hey, FCC, that was a fake. This episode is brought to you by. Brought to you by no one.
Can we mention this, the Patreon thing? Can we do that?
Yes, that's exactly why I did that. That's totally what I was going to do. Speaking of sponsorship, we're really grateful to the patrons for making this program happen.
Yeah, patreon.com/nodumbquestions. That's it. I just want to talk to you about that, see what your thoughts were. I know it's not a huge episode or thought, anything like that. I just thought you would have thoughts, and you did.
No, that was fun, dude. Thanks for hanging out. I like that story. And the only thing that I thought was coming, I just would have assumed at some point you would have turned on your camera or a microphone or something. I thought you were going to play the actual incident for me, and it's never happened.
That would have been cool, Matt, but I don't have the recording. I didn't think to turn my phone on. But I did talk about this, and I got a recording from a listener that says they had something similar happen on their flight, but there was a different result of the whole exchange. I think it's pretty interesting. Do you want to hear it?
So this is like how it should have gone?
I think so, yeah. It was, let me see, it's from B Eccles here is the person that sent this in. You mean just go ahead and play it? Here, let me put it in here.
Yeah, I'd
Put
like
it in the
yes.
tape deck here. Okay, I'm going to put it in the tape deck here.
How is my smoochy puppy doing on this long flight? It's only going to be a little while, little smoochy. It's going to be fine. Cuddle up right here next to Daddy's neck.
Barnacles.
Just be very comfortable.
Put the dog away. When they come down the aisle, obviously I'm not in airplane mode yet, even though I'm supposed to be. But you're going to draw attention to the dog. Don't do it.
Dr. Pickles gets stressed out. Isn't that right, Dr. Pickles? You get stressed out.
Hey, stop. I don't like Dr. Pickles.
No, it's going to
Why is Dr. Pickles whimpering so much?
Dr. Pickles, this bad man. Oh, you like that?
Why are you doing this?
Me and Dr.
Just let us get to our destination without being
I'm
weird.
receiving emotional support. Testicles.
Hey, chill. Hey, chill out. The flight attendant here. I told you. Here she is. All right, here she comes.
Hold this dog.
No.
Excuse me, sir. We're on the runway. I'm going to have to ask you to put your dog away.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, though. I'm gonna. This is Dr. Pickles.
Just put your dog away.
My dog. Okay. Thank you for that
Just
feedback.
put your dog away.
I'm handling the conversation right now. I'm handling this.
I'm sorry, sir.
Dr. Pickles
The
is
policy of our airline.
All right. Dr. Pickles is more
sorry,
than a
sir.
dog to me. Dr. Pickles is like a prescription. So, for example, the way that a doctor prescribes to you hemorrhoid cream, so a doctor prescribes to me Dr. Pickles. So I think I'm just going to keep Dr. Pickles out here with me.
Sir, airline policy states that all pets must be stowed during takeoff and landing and for the duration of the flight. So I'm going to need you to put your dog under your seat immediately.
Look, I told you. Just put the dog away. Just don't make this weird. Just put the dog away.
It's fine.
We'll make it on
That's
our
fine.
flight just
Okay.
fine. Just do it.
Thank you for that. Ma'am, the key difference between Dr. Pickles and other dogs is that Dr. Pickles suffers from crippling dog anxiety. And I think if I put Dr. Pickles under the seat, that's actually going to be worse for Dr. Pickles. So what if we have Dr.
Okay,
Pickles
hey.
stay out here with
Barnacles.
me?
Barnacles.
Yeah,
here's,
sorry.
Here's the deal. The guy behind you is getting
Yes.
mad,
I see that.
and I recommend you do what the flight attendant says.
I
Just do what the
recommend
flight attendant says.
that the guy behind me get his own Dr. Pickles so that he can be emotionally supported when he gets angry. I'm not angry. I'm fine. Dr. Pickles doesn't like to ride under the seat, ma'am. I am just going to keep, I promise, I'm going to keep Dr.
Excuse me,
Pickles
sir.
totally under control.
Here's the deal.
Okay.
I'm with the flight attendant. I'm going to need you to You're either going to put the dog under the seat right now, or I'm going to waffle stomp your dog into the
Okay.
Just do it.
First
do
of
it.
all, I don't know what waffle stomp means, but secondly, I will put the dog by under the seat. How about right in between? Halfway. Okay. Oh! Dr. Pickles! Well, as much as I didn't like seeing Dr. Pickles get waffle stomped under my seat, I have to admit, he's handling it better than I expected, and I guess we all learned a valuable lesson today about airplane etiquette.
That's right. All right, now just let me go ahead and read, and you just shut up. Let's get there.